Good afternoon, or should I say hiya, and welcome back to Hini Hi on this Sunday fun day. It's another non-video ASMR one, I guess. I hope everyone is safe and well, and that people's situations are improving, even if just by a little. Every day is very significant, and even small steps are very significant and blessed. So some of you might need to hear that. But anyway, Sunday fun day, day of appreciation. We are in the season of appreciation, Leo season. Moon is in Libra right now. So it's a great time to take responsibility for relationships, to respond to relationships. So this video is on Jupiter in Pisces, and it is a request video. I'm going to talk about what Jupiter is very briefly, and then I'm going to discuss what Pisces is, just a few aspects, and then we are going to go through the houses briefly to see specifically for you what this placement might mean. So not only having Jupiter in Pisces, but Jupiter in Pisces in the 3rd house, for example, that might be our placement, or in the 5th house, or in the 12th house. If you would like to book a reading with me, whether that be a tarot reading or a birth chart consultation or a transit report, please feel free, queerhini@gmail.com, to inquire about booking. I have, I think, 2 days next week completely free, and I do have some potential slots coming in, being filled. So if you'd like a Leo season transit reading specifically, do be quick. And I do offer, by the way, lockdown discount rates, because most of us are going through some big financial strains, changes, and more uncertainty than before. So I have tried to make all of my services as affordable, even more affordable as they have been, but as affordable as possible. So yes, what is Jupiter? So I've chosen as the first image for this video the Wheel of Fortune card from the tarot, because this is a card that is often interpreted as Jupiter, sometimes as Sagittarius. I tend to lean more to the Jupiter interpretation when I have this card in a spread, or when I see this card. It is the archetype, yes, sometimes of luck, but also just this Wheel of Fortune, this concept of you get what you're given, or like a destiny, or the wheel is always turning as well. So, you know, you could be at the top of the wheel, you could be at the bottom of the wheel. The wheel could be going really fast, it could be going really slow, it could feel like it's going backwards, but the wheel is always turning. And this is the Wheel of Fortune, and this also is a representation of a journey, which is very Jupiterian as well. Jupiterian stuff are journeys, basically. And that can be like literal, physical journeys. So literal, actual travel, but also in all the metaphysical, philosophical, figurative senses of journey. If you are interested, you can check out my Jupiter in the 4th house video for a foundation on Jupiter. I will put the timestamp in this video for that video for you to go and watch. So you can watch that specific part of the video to get more depth on Jupiter, rather than me going through it all again here. Here I'm just going to summarize the archetypes of Jupiter first of all. So we have basically, as the archetype or list of archetypes of Jupiter, the teacher. So Jupiter is the teacher planet or archetype. You can also think of the philosopher, the preacher, the lucky one, the divine one, the enthusiastic one, the optimist, things coming easy or naturally, pushing your luck. Expander as well. Jupiter is an archetype of expander, the expander or expansion. Heaviness or heavy lessons as well. This is Jupiterian. Hubris, Zeus, showing off or being grandiose. Phrases. Jupiterian types love phrases and adages, quotes, mottos. And go big or go home is a huge Jupiterian adage. Wisdom, belief, Spaces and countries can also be archetypes of Jupiterian energy. For example, the United States, so-called United States, that's a Sagittarius rising country. Or England, for example, is a Sagittarius sun country, I believe. Ideologies of freedom, or just ideologies in general. Being jolly, being jovial, being outgoing, being like pie in the sky as well, like wishful. Travel, publishing, especially in like traditional astrologies. I come across this interpretations of publishing, or dissemination. Laws, convictions, things like horses, centaurs, riding, whether that's like physically actually riding something or someone, or it is like the feeling of riding, the idea of a ride, a journey again. Being wild and revelry, goofiness, and the right way as well. This idea of the right way. So this is the right way I define as our personal sort of collection of convictions based on our broad interactions with the world and everyone else, the others, and the collective. So we are developing, cultivating this right way, sort of like our own philosophy, and it is what we feed our beliefs and how we fuel our optimism. And yes, again, Jupiter is the wheel of fortune in the tarot. It can be a flush of good luck, or it could mean that, you know, it's a bit of a downer, but it's always going to come up, you know, because Jupiterian types also love phrases like the light must always come after the dark, spring is always after winter. Let's talk then about Pisces, and I've chosen for the tarot image of Pisces, just in terms of archetypes again, the moon card is actually often associated with Pisces, or interpreted as Pisces. You know, if the moon card comes up, the reader might be like, oh, you're going to meet a Pisces, or there's a Pisces in your life you're having trouble with. Okay, the moon card can be a Pisces. Not the ruler of Pisces, but we can also strongly associate it with Pisces in the tarot due to some of the aspects that I'm about to list that I think sort of answer what is Pisces as a general archetype. So Pisces is really about getting lost, and Jupiter rules both Sagittarius and Pisces. You might have noticed when I listed some of the archetypes of Jupiter just before, a lot of them might have sounded to you very Sag, very wild. You know, goofiness, for example, it's a little bit more of a Sag thing than a Pisces thing, I would say. But actually Jupiter rules both Sagittarius and Pisces. And Sag is more the yang side of this ruling, and Pisces the yin. But both of them are very into getting lost. And it's kind of like a purposeful loss, because Jupiter also deals with purpose, so a sense of purpose, you know, whether that be like a religious purpose, or a cultural purpose, or some sort of righteous righteous purpose. It is always about getting lost, being part of that purposeful journey. And in the Sagittarian sense, it is outward experience. It's kind of like a horse, if you like, galloping out in the wild, and finding out about all the other horses, all the other people, beings. Or it's kind of like someone who goes out to lots of different parties to see lots of different people, explore lots of different types of fun, and to keep moving on when the fun stops in one place to move to the next. That's kind of more like Sag, outward experience, doing it all for this experience and knowledge, knowing, because Jupiter is also about knowledge. It's big, huge on knowledge. If you look at the planet, the actual planet Jupiter, it is humongous. It has about 80 moons, or more than 80 moons. It's freaking huge. And so it's big on bigness. But Pisces, also about getting lost, is inward experience. So it's still the knowing, wanting to know, wanting to experience a lot of things, but it's inward. So you might hear a lot of astrologers describe Pisces as a sponge. And all water signs are kind of like this to some degree, but Pisces is the most passive of the water signs. It is the most absorbent of all the sort of vibrations going on around it. This energy sort of soaks it all up, if you like, in order to experience all of those emotions and to some degree to relate to all of those emotions. And so my next point is that Pisces is knowing that is received. So again, it's this passivity or this inward experience, but knowledge that is received. Like the moon in the tarot, it's about reception, it's about intuition, it's about waiting, drawing something in. Whereas Sagittarius, that knowing is knowing which is retrieved. So Pisces is received, Sag is retrieved, i.e. Sag energy tends to embody actually going out, more of the fiery physicality, the action, going out and experiencing and getting even. Whereas Pisces, these energies are more like still and attractive. Of course they move as well, but there's more of a peace to it, and I'm going to get to peace in a moment, but there's more of a peace to it. But they're both experiential, that's the point, because Jupiter wants to experience every single thing. That's why Jupiter's so huge. Jupiter's humongous, and Jupiter wants all the moons. And Jupiterian people want to know about everything and everyone, especially the Sag people. Sag is the opposite of Gemini, so it's on the Gemini-Sagittarius pole, and both of those zodiacal archetypes, those energies, they are about knowledge. If you think about Gemini, it's about collecting as much gossip or data, facts as possible, and quite often disseminating that around as well. Pisces is also a representation of the ultimate empath. Again, going back to this like ultimate sort of emotional sponge archetype. And words like ultimate are really important when we talk about Pisces as well, because it is the last sign of the zodiac. It's the 12th sign. It's the end. So in traditional astrology as well, I feel Pisces had more to do, or Pisces, or rather the 12th house, which Pisces is often associated with nowadays, but the 12th house has more to do with real ends, real undoing, and not actually the 8th house. The 8th house does have a relation to ends as well, but the 12th house is the real ends, the ultimate end of things. It's the end of the zodiac wheel before we start again with Aries and spring. On the one hand, that which is ultimate, so the ultimate empath, the last water sign, for example, it's the ultimate empath. Also, this is why Pisces is sometimes called the trash can of the zodiac. And I first heard this term actually by the Divine Venus years ago when she made her videos as the aforenamed Alyssa Sharp. That was her name then. I first heard her describe Pisces as the trash can of the zodiac then, and it makes a lot of sense. It might help us understand Pisces more when we think of it like this. It doesn't mean that it's bad at all. What it means when we say Pisces is the trash can of the zodiac is that there's this idea that Pisceans have already been all the other 11 signs before, which is kind of an explanation of a lot of their dreaminess and their sort of wanting to drowse a lot during the day, during the night, wanting to escape a lot, wanting to succumb to addiction and the allure of things and people a lot. But also, again, going back to that point of being the ultimate empaths, wanting to understand and empathize with everyone and everything, or almost everyone and everything. Not just because they are emotional sponges like most water signs are, but because they've actually, according to this zodiacal theory, they've actually sort of been all of the signs. So although they are on Earth in this sort of mundane realm, there's this, for a lot of Pisceans, Pisces heavy people, there's this feeling of sort of not being so down to earth or so in tune with reality, or wanting even to like stay too long in reality. They might, you might get a lot of artistic energy if you have lots of Pisces in your chart. It doesn't mean you're going to be an actual literal artist. It's just the energy or the archetypes that are the same as similar to art, creativity, expression, beauty even. So yes, Pisces is the trash can of the zodiac because they're also all encompassing. So they do tend to have this quality, Pisceans, of being all encompassing. Again, like the emotional sponge, they can take in a lot of emotions, or the emotions of everyone, everything around them. They can also be all encompassing, as in they can do lots of different things. It's a mutable sign at the end of the day, so all the mutable signs are flexible. So the Pisceans can really swim here, there, and everywhere to experience, but it's almost like in this lost way that they do this. But they're just so all-encompassing. So they could, before they get to that, because Pisces is always striving to get back to Aries, to get to the spring again. Pisces can seem a lot of the time to be so lost, to be so unmotivated. But actually what they're doing is encompassing as much as they can so as to find what it is that they're actually that they actually come to know that they're here for, or here to do. The Pisces suns, this is especially for you listening, Pisces suns, once you find that, once you have that internal knowing of, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is who I'm supposed to be with, then the sort of all-encompassingness of you might calm down, and you won't be this sort of person who actually is lost most of the time, or seems to be lost to others. Okay, another point is that Pisces is like magic meeting the mundane. And again, this is because, not just because it's the last zodiacal sign, and therefore the kind of more towards the ultimate end of things, but because Pisces is also the opposite of Virgo. So this Piscean Virgoian axis, in the oppositional sense, is like magic and the ethereal, and then the real and the mundane. And so you might get this when you meet Pisceans, or you might like to remember this when you want to think about archetypes of Pisces, or what Pisces is. It's magic that meets the mundane. So Piscean people, they are, yes, with us. They're living here. They are here on Earth. But they have something very ethereal about them, usually. Something very like mystifying. Can like just seem like they're stoned, even if they're not. Maybe they actually are stoners, but most of them aren't going to be that way. But it is this sort of energy that they are giving off, this radiance, if it's Pisces sun, or this aura, if it's the Pisces rising, that makes them seem almost like divine. Not like in an arrogant or like really outward or fiery, showy way, because this is yin energy and it's, it's calm, it's inward, but still there's a sense of divinity because Jupiter is divine after all. It is, it has the archetype that is Zeus, for example. Radio is another thing as well that we can think of with Pisces. So Pisces is also radio. It's radio vibes. And I always remember when I had a conversation about Beyonce and Rihanna with someone, and I was saying how much I love Rihanna, and this other person was a big Beyonce fan, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Rihanna, she's radio." Like it was a comment that was a bit shady, because obviously I knew this other person much prefers Beyonce and never would prefer anyone else, the Queen Bee. But it's really interesting why that would come about, why that kind of comment would come about, even if it was shade. Because even shade can be astrologically accurate. Like, Rihanna is a Pisces sun, and Pisceans are about radio. And again, going back to, as we've mentioned before, Pisces is about all-encompassing qualities. It's about being this trash can sort of archetype. It's about being this emotional sponge. So Pisceans, like Rihanna, for example, when they put things out there, it has more of this radio effect. Kind of like if you drop a pebble in a lake or whatever, there's just ripples. It just ripples out. And these types of musician, artist, whatever the case, they just have a music or a style or a creativity that touches almost everyone. And that's why it comes across as radio, even if you don't like it. It comes across as radio because Pisces, in the tarot, by the way, Pisces is also associated often with the World card, which makes sense because, again, it's this idea of everything, all-encompassing. And that's why, or that's one of the reasons why Pisceans, if they're an artist, an actual artist like Rihanna, they produce music that just touches everyone. It's like Justin Bieber. He's a Pisces. Like, his music just ripples out. It just touches almost everyone. You've got, who else have you got? You've got will.i.am, Pisces sun. He's a Sag rising as well. Very Jupiterian. But these musicians, these artists, these individuals, doesn't matter if they're a celebrity or not, they will have just this, they produce something that is more all-encompassing, basically. And they probably just know how to do this, and they know how to just relate to more of a worldliness than something that is maybe more specific, or something that is more like a cliqued, or something that is more I don't want to say trendy, but something that is more like, what's the word, about ego or something like that. Like, it's not really about Pisces. I'm not saying that Pisceans can't be egoic, of course they can, but generally this energy is not an egoic energy. It can definitely get righteous and like really ultra orthodox religious. It can definitely turn that way on you, but overall Piscean energy is not like that. It is more radio. It just sort of plays to you like a radio. It's not like, how can I describe? It's just like a wave, radio waves. And the other reason why this happens is that it's because Pisces comes after Aquarius. And Aquarius, so Pisceans are all innately Aquarian. The sign that comes before you is what you are innately, and you've just come out of that energy. So Pisceans have just come out of that massive fixed dissemination that is air, Aquarian air. They've just come out of that. And Aquarians know all about disseminating messages to loads and loads of people. Now, granted, they do it more on the air way, which is about like communication and relationships and networking, and they're much more outgoing usually than the average Piscean. They're going to be much more talkative, much more like gregarious, talkative, same words, Hitty. But they're going to be much more out there basically because it's yang air and it's the last yang sign of the zodiacal wheel, Aquarius. So Pisces has just come out of all of that. They know how to push a message out, and they do it, but it's just that it comes much more across as this like ethereal or otherworldly even, but peaceful as well, and sort of whole, sort of all-encompassing way. Pisces, you know, if you look at the if you look at symbols of Pisces, the sign itself, it's often represented as two fish. And this is a representation also of, or a relation to, the fact that Pisces is mutable water. It's a mutable water sign. And so it's really apt that we have two fish here. Because these people who are heavy in Pisces energy, they can go one way, they can go the other way. So all mutable signs are different, very different to cardinal and fixed signs. But with the Pisceans specifically, it's like one side of them wants to be in the mundane and can be really good at being in the mundane, but the other fish wants to swim away and pull them into the other world. And so Pisceans live, if you want to think about what is Pisces, Pisces is living on a rocking boat in the sea, or the ocean even, in the vastest sea you can think of. Pisces is like being on a boat in the middle of that rocking. It's like you are so insignificant, really, because the 12th house deals with feelings of insignificance. It's the last house, it's the ultimate things. So insignificant, yet you obviously want to survive as well. You don't want to drown. So you are staying on that boat, and you are swaying with the boat. You are maybe sailing the boat. You are paying a lot of attention to the boat so as to not go overboard as well. So this is like kind of an image maybe that can be helpful to understand Pisces and their struggle a lot of the time. Pisces is also about fantasy. Definitely about fantasy. If you want to ask, what is Pisces? Yeah, it's definitely fantasy. And that can be so many different things. So many different things. Like, I once dated this, well, it wasn't really a date, it was more like a hookup, but I once hooked up with this Pisces sun. And from the moment I entered his place, it was just like, I knew it was a Pisces, but then I was like, oh my god, wow. You love fantasy. Like, he loved fantasy, and he just wanted to show me, like, all this very, like, specifically fantastical genre of music. He wanted to show me all this fantastical music that he loved to listen to. And he wanted to show me, like, all the costumes and all the scenery. He wanted to show me about all these people and their fantastical lives. They were, like, real people. They're not characters, they're real people, but, like, they were so fantastical, you know? They were like nymphs. They were like mermaids, merpeople, you know? It was really just, it was just really interesting how in this space that was his flat, he was just oozing with fantasy, and so was he. He was just oozing with the life and the radiance of being able to dive into that fantasy and to really just consume it, or at least to appreciate it, because we have to be able to do that. And Pisceans teach us a lot about this, really, in the real mundane, ugly rat race world. We're in the rat year, by the way, right now, so Pisceans could be super helpful for many of us right now, to help us get through a lot of the harsher aspects of 2020, which does promote a lot of self-preservation, a lot of selfishness, a lot of dog eats dogness, a lot of plotting as well, greed. A lot of those more negative rat qualities can definitely come out, have been coming out this year. So Pisceans can really help with that, kind of heal it or soothe it through kind of opening little windows. And often it's just temporarily, or they swim in and out of our lives to do this. They just open up these little windows that show you these fantastical spaces, these places that we can dip into to escape. Another point, another archetype of what Pisces is then, is that it is peace and flow. And this again comes really, in my view, from this Pisces Virgo pole. So Pisces and Virgo are two ends of the same pole, or as I often say, two ends of the same stick. So they're very often presented as being opposites, can never get on, blah blah blah. But actually it's the same thing. They're the same thing, just doing it or going about it in different ways, seemingly oppositional or contradictory ways. And the Piscean end of this Pisces Virgo pole is really about peace and flow. So Pisceans really, they could come across definitely as these really empathetic, delicate, passive, sleepy sort of beings. They can definitely come across like that, but only if their inner peace and their inner experience is not compromised, is not messed up. And Pisces is about flow as well, so only if their flow is left alone and not frigged with too much will you never have to see the other sides of Pisces, which is the shark, the anglerfish, and all the other things in the sea that can kill you. Sometimes Pisces is so dangerously underrepresented. People need to be more aware of what Pisces energy can be capable of when peace and flow is like dirtied or insulted. Because remember, this is Jupiterian energy, so it's about beliefs, it's about divinity, and it's also about those senses of being ultimate. And it's the last sign of the zodiac, so they have a lot of knowledge that they've accrued spiritually, a lot of it, but a lot of it's so like internalized and so kept there that it can be shocking when the peace and the flow is disrupted so much that the Pisces is pushed, and you see a divine Jupiterian, the most ultimate response from that person. It's a little bit similar to Taurus energy. Like, Taurians can be kind of like this, like they can really, really, really take a lot, and then when they are pushed to the max, it's pretty extreme what they can do. But with Pisces, it's even more like a film. It's going to come across like a film. Like, it's unreal how they've just reacted to being pushed too far, or to having their peace and their flow disrupted too much. Pisces is also about this sort of savior victim thing. So Pisceans always remember striving towards that Aries sign. They can want to save people, want to save things a lot of the time. And or they can also consider themselves victims of things, of people, of situations a lot of the time. They can, sometimes it's true because they allow things to come their way, or they, very similar to Virgo, they are too much of a doormat, and they let this doormat energy lead to just situations where they do become victims. And then other times they're not a victim, but they victimize themselves, because Piscean energy is, again, this has a lot of this sense of, what's the point of being here? I'm so insignificant on this vast ocean. I'm just a speck here, or I've already been there and done all of that. These like Piscean sentiments can create another sentiment of, I'm just like I'm a victim of this world. Why am I here? kind of thing. That can be what happens. That can be what Pisces is, what Pisces becomes. Pisces is also addiction and escapism. We've probably heard addiction a lot of the time when we talk about Pisces. But it's not just like drugs, like literal narcotics or weed or alcohol, but also addiction to anything or anyone. It can be like an addiction to a person, like an obsession, an infatuation. It can be like a mystification. So mystified or besotted on someone. It can be an addiction to work. That can be a thing as well. The addiction, the type of addiction doesn't matter. It is more that Pisces can become so addicted so as to keep that escapism, or not keep it, but to stay in it. So it's kind of like the fish. One of the fish just won't let the other fish go the other way. And so it won't bring Pisces back to the mundane. It doesn't want Pisces to go back to the mundane or to last too long in the mundane. It's kind of like if we go back to that image of rocking on a boat in the middle of the ocean, when there's too much of this addiction energy, like the boat just overturns, or the boat just keeps overturning and going under, or you keep falling off the boat, getting thrown off the boat, succumbing to the waves. But yes, the addiction is really to do with the escapism. Like the moon, which in the tarot again is often associated with Pisces, feeling comfort in that escape. Pisces is the most yin of the zodiac as well. So if the zodiac goes yang yin 6 times, so Aries being yang, Taurus being yin, and then we go like that, Pisces being the last sign is the last yin sign, and so it's the most yin of the zodiac. Yin being, very briefly, about receiving, containing within. It's about cores, it's about that which is unseen or unapparent, that which is spiritually feminine. And so this is what gives a lot of these connotations of, Pisces is so gentle, Pisces is so nice, and they are very gentle and nice, and they have huge capacity to be that way. But that can really turn into, it can really be the most dark as well, the most sort of accumulated darkness as well. That which can lead the Piscean to real darknesses. So people who might undo them, places that might be dangerous to them, situations that will damage them. It's very easy for the world to sort of blow up for Pisces, for the chaos to come, the end of the world. And going back to the Pisces Virgoan pole, it is just the same over there for Virgo, like this. It's very easy for Virgos to get like really neurotic about the details of everything, really neurotic about serving everyone and everything in every situation, that they just explode, go over the top, and they just become the Pisces. They just become the Pisces. And then you've got the Pisceans back on this end who are so receptive and nice and gushy and empathetic. They're so lovely that they forgo all of their creativity, and they forgo all of their actual own power, and they forgo all of their boundaries and control, that they just become the Virgo in the worst sense. They become the Virgo who just serves everyone. So you get this Piscean who just lets everyone in to walk all over them, who just says yes to everything and everyone. But it has a lot to do with Pisces being the most yin of the zodiac. So they are also the most susceptible, I would say, to becoming lost in so many different ways, and succumbing to chaos, different kinds of chaos. And let's not forget that Pisces comes after Aquarius, and Aquarius is secondarily ruled by Uranus, the planet of chaos. But it's so easy for Pisces to want to, or to just swim or get sucked back into that chaos. But Pisces isn't meant to do that, isn't meant to be chaotic. Pisces is supposed to be creative. Jupiter in Pisces then. So now we're going to go through the houses. So all 12 of the houses. You will need to know your houses. I recommend astrotheme.com. Astrotheme, ASTROTHEME.com. They will calculate your chart, and you do need your birth time, or as accurate as possible, so that you can find out your ascendant, and therefore you can know exactly how your houses are aligned, and specifically where you have Pisces, where you have Jupiter. So let's start with having Jupiter in Pisces in the first house. What I'm getting here is you could look like a hugely wet person, if that makes sense. Huge because it's Jupiter, and wet because it's like Piscean energy. But it's not like necessarily a gross wet. It's kind of like a glistening. There's this glistening look to you. Or this is like your aura. If someone were to read your aura, it may well be sort of glistening, sort of wet, watery, but not so watery like a Cancer rising or Cancer in the first house. It's a bit different to that, and not intensely like hot, watery like Scorpio rising. But there's a sort of glistening or wetness that is also big and huge. And also teaching, learning, knowing, that's going to be a huge part of your life path. And so anything, anyone, any time where there's teaching, learning, knowing involved, it plays huge parts in your life path. You're going on the right track, you're going the right way. But also having Jupiter in the first house generally makes you hugely generous toward yourself. And it's in a Piscean sense, so it could have a lot to do with sort of self-care, or to do with letting yourself enjoy your fantasies, enjoy music, for example. But also hugely generous toward all the people, places, and things that you are personally into. And again, it's in this Piscean sense, so with lots of empathy, providing them lots and lots of empathy, maybe giving them lots of salvation as well. Like, I know this one Pisces rising who's very like this. I don't know if he has Jupiter in his first house, but he's Pisces rising and he's very much like this. Like, he'll say yes to someone and bring upon a lot of burdens on himself, physical burdens, just so that other person can have like a roof over their head or like a meal to eat. Like, he'll really be like that, and he won't make a huge deal of it. He's just kind of like, yeah, sure. And it's very beautiful, and it's salvation. So you could be this kind of person, or someone who's really into that kind of thing, or into that kind of person, because this is first house stuff. But I wouldn't say kind of into, I would say very into, because Jupiter is here. Second house, then, Jupiter and Pisces in the second house. This is huge luck, good luck with your personal income, opportunities, and material. Now, I do want to say, actually, wherever Jupiter is in your chart, yes, it can have this idea of luck, opportunity, blessings, but wherever Jupiter is, we also push that luck, or we can kind of forget or forgo those blessings. So this is why Jupiter is also an archetype of hubris. So anyway, back to the second house. Yes, there might be this huge luck with personal income or opportunities that are to come, and like material things. It can be taken for granted a lot of the time, big time. Or you might push your luck when it comes to the personal items, materials that you have. Also, though, you might have huge personal values and a huge self-esteem. The kind of income that you might have, by the way, the kind of opportunities and materials and stuff that you might have personally, are Pisceans. This is like, it could be like photographs, photography, cameras, arty sort of stuff, film. You could have loads and loads of films. Could be that kind of person, a film buff, or someone who just has personally loads and loads of films. But yes, huge personal values and self-esteem as well. But it's in this sort of Piscean way of hugely valuing creativity, or hugely valuing oneness, hugely valuing things that are representative of the all-encompassing, or of salvation even. So hugely valuing that kind of thing as well. The first house tying in closely to the second. This placement can also bring massive overspending. So do watch out. And being in Pisces, it can also give huge misguided overspending. So there could be some like deception involved, some scam. You could fall prey to scams a lot of the time when your money is concerned. So be very careful of that. You could lose lots of your money, personal possessions, big time. So just be careful, because Pisces energy is that energy that tends to disintegrate the boundaries, or at least be like wishy-washy, literally. So just beware of that when it comes to your money and stuff. The city of Amsterdam has this placement, so Jupiter in Pisces in the second house, which is very interesting, isn't it? The third house. So if you have this placement, Jupiter in Pisces in the third house, you're going to have quite possibly lots of siblings, and or lots and lots of neighbours or people in your immediate locality, however that is construed for you, because the third house also deals with like neighbours, people just around you. This is in a Piscean sense as well. So your siblings, they could be very like creative types, or just like really sort of dreamy, fantastical types of people. It could be very like out of it type of siblings. You could have a druggy sibling or two. You know, so it's good, bad, and ugly, right? When we talk about any energy or archetype. So yeah, you could have some really lost siblings as well, or like really like siblings that have been victims, that are victims a lot of the time. Also with this placement, this gives a very wise way of personally relating, because this is Jupiter, but it's also Piscean Jupiter, so it's yin Jupiter. It's really emotional, personal relating. It's really empathetic, personal relating. And this really does inform a lot of your intelligence and your and how you're mentally stimulated in like conversations and stuff. It also gives you a very broad range of hobbies and interests, like hugely. Jenna Marbles on YouTube, she has this placement, and that's also her life path ruler. Jupiter, because she's a Sag rising, Jupiter is in her 3rd house. Okay, if you have Jupiter in the 4th house in Pisces, you can actually check out my video. I made a whole video on this placement of Jupiter in the 4th house. So do go check out that for you specifically. We can consider celebrities like Edith Piaf, will.i.am. His Jupiter is also his life path ruler. He's a Sag rising, I mentioned before. And who's it? Bear Grylls. Bear Grylls as well has Jupiter in the 4th house in Pisces. Very interesting. Very, very interesting, the Bear Grylls thing. But because, anyway, Jupiter is in Pisces in the 4th house, the Pisces part of this placement gives someone, because the 4th house has things to do with esoterics, your personal esoteric rootedness, your personal past, your personal nostalgia, where you are personally comfortable, where your heart personally is, where it rests. It's all in Pisces stuff, so creativity, in peace, in vibes, harmony, in art, and all that jazz. All the stuff we talked about before. So it's like that's where you're personally rooted, and that's where you're most private as well. And it can be quite hard with the 4th house stuff to access because we live in such a fast-paced environment, most of us. So it can be really hard to understand the 4th house, just like the 12th house. But it is about like rootedness, spiritual, personal rootedness of yours. It's going to be hugely fantastical, hugely Piscean, hugely escapist, hugely addictive perhaps, maybe even hugely musically shamanic as well. That can be something very likely for someone with this placement. Okay, 5th house. Jupiter in Pisces in the 5th house. This can give you lots of children, like literal children, but also lots of personal projects. That's also a kind of child. So personal projects, whether that be like a business plan, a book, things, a robot, whatever it is, a personal project of yours. Okay, you put love into it, you put care into it, right? It could be a little garden that you grow, a little cabbage patch, right? Whatever it is, it's like a child to you. So that's 5th house stuff. So there could be loads and loads of this for you because Jupiter is here, but it's Pisces. So it could be, if we're talking about projects, it could be like really artistic stuff, creative stuff again, stuff to do with film, maybe photography, illustration, music, poetry. And if we talk about children, literal human children, they could be children who are of all those Piscean qualities. So they could be really sort of introverted, creative types, quite artsy. They could grow up to be like photographers. They could grow up to be people who work or want to work for NGOs, or like they want to be like a lawyer, which is very like normal sort of career aspiration, but the type of lawyer they'll want to be could be like one who fights for human rights cases and stuff like that, or environmental protection or something like that. It could be that kind of adult that the kids grow up into. But with this placement, Jupiter in Pisces in the 5th house can give someone who's very big on casual sex and or flirtations, like hugely flirtatious, lots and lots of casual sex. But because Pisces is here, it's very yin, so there could be a lot of attraction to it, you bringing a lot to you, a lot of people to you, or you just having this allure, this mysticism about you, this glistening again, that attracts a lot of casual sex. Even if this is like sort of imagined, so porn basically, so lots of porn could be here because the 5th house is about fun and it's about creative sex and casual sort of surface fun stuff, flirtations and all that jazz. And so putting Pisces here and Jupiter here, this is like a huge porn consumer sort of placement. Also, this placement can make you go very overboard with things like gambling, taking risks, and when you have fun, because again, It's the house of fun, but also it's the house of gambling, risk-taking. So just be careful. You know, there's this adage, how does it go? When the fun stops, stop. On the gambling ads, they have that at the end now to remind you, yeah, it's fun, but don't, you know, blow your life savings. So this is a fifth house message as well. So there could be huge problems for the person or challenges that have to do with going overboard with gambling, taking risks, and it can be quite accentuated here because Pisces is here as well. So this is about escapism. So if you have a potential to anyway escape through something like gambling, just be really careful because Jupiter is here and it can make you go way, way, way overboard. Finally, this placement can also give like huge authentic teacher potential. So whether you are literally becoming a teacher, like officially, or you just got these teacher vibes about you. It's very authentic, and it's hugely authentic actually, because the fifth house deals with personal authenticity. It's like personal creativity, your personal creative heart, your real heart of hearts when it comes to putting out and committing and being brave and all that jazz personally. So it's about authenticity, who you authentically personally are. And it's huge teacher potential for you. And people can see the authenticity of the things that you teach, the things that you have to offer, knowledge-wise. Sixth house, then. This suggests a huge outgoing routine. But putting Pisces here is interesting because it makes the routine all of a sudden like a little bit without structure or a little bit escapist, involving a lot of naps, maybe involving a lot of distraction. But it's still really huge, it's lucky, it's also venturing, or it's curious, sort of routine. It can also, this placement can make you hugely mature because the sixth house is about maturity and Jupiter makes everything big, and so a hugely mature person, but someone who's hugely mature about their empathy. So it can actually be a great placement because you're really expanding on the knowledge, the experiences, things you're learning about empathy and your maturity, how you deal with things, people, situations wherein you need to be empathetic, how you deal with that, how you utilize that, how you make practical sense of that, all this sort of sixth house stuff. You could also, with this placement, be very lucky with work, with tasks, errands, and also you could be big on service. And again, the type of service you might do could be Piscean in nature very much. So maybe saving people, working in hospitals, being involved in something charitable. But again, it's sixth house stuff, so it's not necessarily like your dream thing. It's just something that you kind of, if not on the daily, quite regularly, routinely are involved with. That could be like Piscean. The kind of service you could do could be artistic or creative as well. So maybe you're like a photographer as a job, or you get a lot of jobs that involve photography where you are serving someone or some company or some group through your photographic services. That's just one way this could play out. But also with Jupiter being here, it's very lucky. So very lucky at getting that type of work even. And also just generally, Jupiter in the sixth house can give you lots and lots of different types of job or work. Or it's like, it can be really easy for you to get jobs and work. Seventh house then. This gives you like a hugely wise on oppositional people, places and things type of person. So you're very wise when it comes to the enemy, basically. Big on commitment as well, because the seventh house deals with commitment, committed partners, for example. Also, viewing the other as hugely blessed or lucky. That's a really nice thing about this placement. You can see others as being hugely blessed. You can see their huge blessings. Just be careful that you don't forget to see yourself as also being blessed, as also having luck and knowledge and things to expand on. Because the seventh house can be where we kind of think that it's just everyone else who has that, or is that, when actually it's you as well. Especially if you're viewing everyone as stupid, or if you're viewing everyone as foolish, or if you're viewing everyone as idealistic, dreamy, all those Jupiterian things, pie in the sky. Be careful, because that might actually be you projecting when you don't even know it. That's 7th house stuff. 8th house then. Oh, by the way, going back to the 7th house, Drake and J.R.R. Tolkien, they both have their Jupiters in 7th house. But back to the 8th house, if you have this placement, this is like hugely knowing of other people's secrets, of the weaknesses of things, and of like the darknesses of places and spaces. So big knowledge on these more hidden things. It could also provide for big manipulation, and Pisces can be a really good sign for manipulation, for the good, bad, or ugly. But yes, huge manipulation here, and the 8th house deals with manipulations and like manipulative sort of symbiotic relationships, bonds. So just take care, because you can get into this sort of passive-aggressive, gaslighting, sort of manipulative bond space with Jupiter in Pisces in the 8th house. But this placement can also give like someone who's very lucky with other people's resources, other people's contracts, or rather like contracts you have with other people. Debt as well is another thing. You could have massive shared debt, or you could also have like big luck when it comes to, or big knowledge when it comes to shared debt. It is Pisces as well here in this 8th house, so just do be careful, because remember, wherever Jupiter is where we can go overboard, and so there could just be this like pushing your luck with shared contracts, or shared resources. But also there's the Pisces in the mix, which provides like a sort of ooh, I didn't notice that little detail. I didn't notice that little detail in the contract. Shit, like that kind of thing can happen, and then there can be this death of the contract, or death of the shared resource, or the access to the shared resource, because the 8th house deals with deaths of all kinds. And so just take care of that sort of stuff. Make sure you're being wise and not just like foregoing again those blessings. The 9th house, Jupiter in Pisces in the 9th house gives a hugely optimistic person. It gives someone who's big on beliefs. Okay, the police are out right now. Yes, big on beliefs, and it also gives someone who's like has a highly divine right way. So we talked about the right way being an archetype of Jupiter. The number 9 is also an archetype of Jupiter. The 9th house is very often associated in modern astrology with Sagittarius. But anyway, the highly divine right way can be what comes with this placement, Jupiter in Pisces in the 9th house. And also like very big, you're going to have very big teachers in your life, like very big teachers, other people you come across, and they're going to have very big lessons for you. But whether those lessons, or regardless of whether or not those lessons are good or bad, you're going to come out of those lessons, those huge lessons, with optimism and with faith, and they're going to be really informative for your right way. That's really a lot of what the 9th house is about. 10th house then. So this is like Jupiter in the 10th house in Pisces, but just Jupiter in the 10th house in general gives huge reputation. Yeah, big reputation, Jupiter in the 10th house. But when we put Pisces here, the reputation, I've got my midheaven is in Pisces, so I do have some Pisces in my 10th house. There is this like huge potential for your public profile or reputation to seem like a fantasy, to seem unreal, or to be on screens somehow a lot, or to be a lie. That's another thing, to be a lie, or to be deceptive, or to be all-encompassing. So someone who has this hugely, ultimately mutable social profile or reputation that seems to be everything seems to know everything, know everyone, seems to be the most worldly in the greatest sense. All that kind of stuff can be how you are reputed. And you could have a very hugely fortunate reputation. You could be very lucky on social media. You could have a huge public audience with this placement as well. Now Lady Gaga, she has this as well. Okay, 11th house. If you have Jupiter in the 11th house, this could give you huge amounts of friends, loads of friends, lots of circles, being a part of lots of different groups. But with Pisces here, these groups, these friends can be like really creative types again. They can be really Piscean in some sense. Again, go back to all these archetypes of Pisces or Jupiter even, and see what types of friends, circles, groups these are. They could also have a lot to do with like progression for the world, or progression for the collective, progression for God, progression for something spiritual, progression for something musical, progression for something peace orientated. Like loads of different things can be when it comes to the friends and the circles and the groups. Also, you can be very blessed. You can have very blessed, wise friends and allies. So don't like push your luck with your friends, like your actual friends, because they're likely to be hugely blessed themselves and very wise. And so you don't want to forsake them or forgo them. And then there's lots of luck as well when it comes to your wishes. So pay attention to, like, you have these wishes and you have these friends. Usually it's friends, but maybe it's like other groups or collectives. You have these other people that can help you achieve these wishes. Do it, follow them, be with them, because it will be much easier for you to attain your wishes. So a lot of wishes could be attained for you hugely or easily when you go forward with your friends, with your allies, with people who are wanting to progress with you in similar ways, or with whom you share a similar wish. Keep going forward and don't take them for granted. Finally, the 12th house. So this is big potential to feel luckless or unblessed, because the 12th house, it is the house of ultimate sleep. And it is said by a lot of astrologers, when there is a house here, or a planet here rather, when there's a planet in the 12th house, the planet kind of goes to sleep. So Jupiter's kind of going to sleep here, so there could be the sense for the person that they don't feel any luck at all for themselves. They don't feel any blessings at all for themselves. That could be one way that this manifests. It depends really on what else is going on. But the 12th house is also to do with dreams, dreamscapes, and dream states. So Jupiter being here, this is loads of dreams, lots of dreams, or huge dreams, or very adventurous dreams. And there could be big learning from the dreams. And there could be even something like divining about the dreams. Pisces is here as well though, so the knowing comes in. The ultimate internal or yin knowing comes through in the dreams. Just be careful when you get drunk, if you do drink, or when you're high, or just when you're really elated, because the 12th house deals with these things of highness, drunkenness, elation, and when our spirit is most likely to come out untethered completely. Just be careful, because Jupiter being in the 12th house gives opportunity for the spirit to go overboard when drunk or when high. And with Pisces here, we already discussed that Pisces is often associated with addictions, and the 12th house is associated with undoing. So combine them, you can get a particularly dangerous cocktail sometimes. So just pay attention to that big potential to go overboard when drunk. So maybe channel or seek the happiness and the highness in something that's more safely creative or safely escapist. Alright, I think that will be that. So that was my wee video on Jupiter in Pisces, and very briefly through the houses. If you have this placement and you'd like a personal reading, do get in touch. If you have this placement, or you know someone who has this placement, do comment below. I'd love to hear from people who actually have this placement and what you think of my interpretation, and to chime in, because only people who really have this placement, I think, will be able to tell truly what it's all about. And this is an amazing placement as well, I think. But yeah, that'll be all for now. Happy Sunday fun day to everyone. I will see you in the next video, which is going to be very exciting, so stay tuned. Do subscribe if you haven't already, give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and click the notification bell if you are subscribed so you get the notifications and you will see my next video. Okay, love you very much. Take care, everyone. Mwah.